You're watching Cable 2.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Curriculum Committee meeting. I will remind the members of this committee, myself, Shay Woodbury, Elizabeth Montsinger, Leah Crowley, and Andrea Bramer. Our first discussion item is PRC 189, Mathematics Enrichment Grant Program, and Sajada Lawton, our Interim Executive Director of Teaching and Learning. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Curriculum Committee Chair Parker, Curriculum Committee Chair Board members, and Superintendent McManus. Today I am presenting PRC 189, which is a math enrichment grant offered from DPI. The guys of the grant shared that it was purposed for mathematics instruction in terms of enrichment, tutorial services, interventions for students that were deemed at risk, or students identifying as being disproportionately impacted by COVID-19. When we took a look at the data, we went through and we kind of looked at all of our grades. The grant was written to serve standards 4 through 8, and then we started to just kind of take a deep dive to say which grade bands would be best served. And from that, we looked at the data for grades 5, 6, 7, 8, and then there was just something within me that just did not sit right, and then I started looking at grade 9. And so the rationale for looking at grade 9 was because our 8th graders last year were immersed in 8th grade middle school for the first time. And now as 9th graders, they're in a new setting again. And so that's a lot of transition. And so we did not want to lose them in this process in terms of offering that additional support that we can. And so the grant was written to serve grades 6, 7, 8, and 9th grade, okay? From that, we were able to undergo the RFP process, looking for tutors that provided daytime instruction that was face-to-face. A lot of the companies that provided some information back to us were solely what I would call virtual tutors. That was not the guise of the grant. We did not feel like that would best support our students. And so we had 2 companies, and of those 2 companies that we selected, we went through a process that included coaches, directors, executive directors, principals, and teachers. From there, we selected university instructors. If you took a look at the information that we did share, we gave evidence of research that showed that high dosage tutoring is actually the best at this point, high yield strategy to try and reduce what we consider to be the COVID gap. And so from there, we selected university instructors. They gave us what I call a comprehensive process in terms of how are they doing this. They were one of the companies that said that, you know what, we will utilize what you already have in terms of your universal screeners and not say that we're going to come in and do something completely different. I wanted to make sure that our students weren't being over-tested and that we could look at the data that we currently have and move from there. And so we do have a representative from University Instructors that's here. If there are any questions about the process, I do know one of the main questions that we talk about is how are we going to get tutors, right? We have a huge teacher shortage, so how does that look? I'm here to report that University Instructors does have a comprehensive plan around what I would consider to be a recruitment for math tutors. The guise of this will start in January and it will actually end in May. We will not use any local dollars for this. The grant, we were funded about $1.2 million, and with that, we are able to identify all of our low-performing schools and added certain schools that did not meet. And so we have about, I believe, roughly 20 schools that will have actually more than 20 schools, what am I talking about, sorry. We have about 25 schools that will be impacted with high dosage tutoring services. any questions? And we do have Kiara, she is here. You can stand, and she's our representative from University Instructors.
The only question I have is where is the tutor pool coming from?
You can come up here.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm kind of loud, so. Our recruiters use a variance of different methods, but a lot of them will be local or from neighboring districts. And the requirements for our instructors are that they have at least a bachelor's degree and that they have a background in math. So they're actually assessed in math before they're even hired. So that's our plan for that, if that answers the question.
Will some of them be our own teachers and instructors that they can do that after hours, or?
And so the guise of this grant is solely during the daytime
Okay.
hours, and so we will not be overlapping or competing with our teachers.
Okay, so it will be during the day. And my other question is, some children are not ninth graders when they're taking Math 1. Will those children be able to be served if they are really deficient?
Yes, ma'am. And so
Okay.
if they're in grade 8, we are looking at all 8th grade math as well as Mathematics 1 in the 8th grade.
Okay, and how about that student that maybe had to take foundations or maybe failed Math 1 as a freshman and they're a sophomore now? Will they be able to be served?
That's the target for high school.
Okay, great.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank. Any other questions, Shay?
Yes, thank you, and forgive my tardiness, but I do have a question as it relates to allowing some of our advanced students in mathematics to serve as tutors. And so the idea comes from, I was on a national call with the Secretary of Education for this country, and also some other school districts, and some of the practices across the country is to allow advanced math students to help bridge the gap too. And so I don't know if we've had any consideration around that with the ESSER dollars, and that was the whole point about the conversation. We could use ESSER dollars to kind of deputize some of our students to help, bridge the gap in mathematics.
And so I think that's a pipeline that we actually need to explore. We did talk to one of the Wake Forest law students that was interested in that process, and so she's a pipeline that we're actually exploring through. She's reached out to the University Education Department, reached out to mathematics majors, and so we're looking at that avenue. In terms of high school students that have taken the advanced courses, as long as there's not a conflict in terms of them taking a course, I don't see why we can't explore that as well.
Ms. Crowley, do you have a question? Oh, okay, sorry. Thought you had your hand up. Any other questions? All right, great. We'll look forward to seeing the results. That's wonderful. Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and you get to do the next one as well. So it's course requirements. It's that time of year to do that, I suppose, so.
Okay, so good afternoon again. I'm presenting the 22-23 high school course request for this year. If you take a look at our timeline, we're spot on, making sure that we carried out what is needed for our registration process to go smooth. And so we have course requests that's happening in 2 areas. And the first area is going to be advanced learning for all, and our second area is career and technical education. I'm going to start with advanced learning for all. We have 3 courses that we are requesting. There's a little bit of draw here. Pre-AP English 2 is a continuation, so it would be curriculum continuity here. We are currently offering Pre-AP English 1 and wanted to make sure that we are building a pipeline for students to actually take AP Lang and AP Lit, and this serves that purpose. So far, in the schools that we have Pre-AP English 1, students are engaged. We actually just gave our first benchmark assessment, and we are taking some feedback. We know that we need to do some calibration around what those assessments look like in terms of grading to the rigor that AP tests are kind of graded at. And so we're taking that feedback, and it's a continual process of improvement there. There should have been a star next to AP African American Studies as AP Pre-Calculus. Just so that you will know, neither AP Pre-Calculus nor AP African American Studies are courses that we kind of control. AP African American Studies is being offered through the College Board through a pilot program. There's only 60 courses in the nation, 60 schools in the nation that will be accepted to actually pilot the course. This will be no cost to us. There currently is not an AP exam written, but they want the students to give a lot of that feedback as to how the test would be prepared. And so just so that you will know, we have asked all of our high schools to register for it. We tried to do it with our AP department. Unfortunately, there was a lot of school-specific questions that we could not answer on behalf of the schools, and so we have charged every school to go ahead and apply for this. AP Pre-Calculus is being offered through College Board, but it is not being offered until the 23-24 school year. And I know you guys are like, well, why are you in front of us presenting this course? I am presenting it so if it is approved, we won't wait until 23-24 that we can start writing out the course curriculum now. And so a lot of times we build it while we're flying, and we just wanted to have that prep time, and so that's why we are requesting AP Pre-Calculus today. I have Kim Forbes, and she will share all of the career and technical education courses. If you see here, we're asking for Information Security 1 and 2, which is cybersecurity. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, just a quick question about the ones that schools are applying for. If only 60 schools get it, does that mean some schools could be offering AP African American History and some could not?
Yes. Yeah, we don't decide that. Unfortunately, it's College Board's decision. We did write to College Board saying, hey, we're willing to do it as a district. So we did offer that. Unfortunately, they told us that they were not interested in district pilots, that it would be school by school.
Was the Career Center included?
Yes.
Okay, so the Career Center did apply as well.
Yes. Every
It's all
school
the high
can,
schools.
yes, every school can apply, but I can tell you now, Reagan has already applied, Career Center has already applied, West Forsyth has already applied. Okay, Kim?
Is there still time for other schools to apply?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
I guess the issue would be AP certification, because you have to be an AP certified teacher, and so that may be limiting some high schools if they don't have personnel certified as AP to teach.
So they will, I think the deadline is actually in December. Schools will be notified if they can offer the course they just said the spring, so I'm assuming by March, and then they will be able to apply and attend the AP institutes before actually instituting the course.
So they wouldn't have to be already AP teacher certified, that would come after the
They will
fact,
attend
right?
the institute during the summertime, so
Okay.
no one will be left behind in that
Okay.
process.
So if a high school is interested but foresee limitations because of personnel, how will the district assist them in getting, being able to apply to be a school to teach AP African American History?
Well, we actually have one of our, what I call lead teachers for AP, and one of her actual duties this week and next week is to make sure that all schools apply. We're hoping, we haven't heard anything secure, but we know that it will be offered at one of the schools, according to what the College Board has said to us. We're hoping that one of those options would be Career Center so that it can be explored by all schools for students to take it.
But there's nothing presently stopping any school, from applying and having a level playing, you don't have to have an AP certified instructor or anything like that?
No, ma'am, they will get all of the certifications through the AP Institute that's happening during the summer,
Okay, just like
just like
they
every
do.
other. Yes, ma'am.
like they do for all AP courses, okay.
Yes,
all right.
ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, Kim?
Thank you. For the CTE courses,
We're wanting to offer the Information Security 1 and 2, which is cybersecurity at Carver High School. That is a local course option that we applied to DPI to be approved, which it has been for us to offer. No other district is offering that, so we're really developing it for DPI. Teaching as a Profession 1 and 2 to offer at Reagan High School and West Forsyth High School. And then adding Project Management 1 and 2 to all schools, because that fits into any CTE pathway, and any CTE licensed teacher can teach those courses. And then to add the capstone course for Atkins Project Lead the Way, Engineering, Design, and Development. So are there any questions about those?
Can we have all leaders take the project management 1 and 2 with the children?
We can train them to teach. Be a TA in the classroom and learn it, yes.
Yeah.
So,
So, just as a follow-up, do both Reagan and West have a fairly active teacher, the teacher cadet programs? Do they have large teacher cadet programs in these two schools?
that doesn't come through CTE,
Right.
so I don't know. I do know currently that they teach early childhood.
Right.
And so we wanted to make a shift, the teachers that are teaching early childhood. There's very strict regulations for who can teach. They have to have a master's in education. And we are, to answer your question, I'm not sure about the cadet program. I don't.
I was just thinking that would be a nice segue for those,
Yes.
those students taking that. If they had a large program, it would be very, it'd
Be helpful.
advantageous to offer it
Absolutely.
at a school that had a large.
We are,
good
Board Member Parker, we are expanding the teacher cadet program. It's at East, and then, Dr. Alexander, can you remind me of the other schools with Walkertown, Tabor, and Reynolds also have expanded the teacher cadet? Our goal is to have it in every school. So,
Yeah, that's what I thought, that you were expanding, and so that was helpful, so thank you.
And just to expound on that, if I may, there's articulation agreements with colleges, so there's specific guidelines for the students to have a 2.5 so that they can participate in it because they're earning college credit with it. Currently working on the articulation agreement with Winston-Salem State. It is currently with Forsyth Tech, A&T, and Meredith College, but they're trying to expand that so that the students are getting the college credits as well. So.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very
Thank you.
much. All right, we have, SEL updates. Latrell Adams. I started to say that didn't look like Latrell. Dr. Stokes, just saw you from behind, but I still didn't think so.
That's okay. Ms. Adams and Dr. Cato is at a training on restorative practices in Raleigh. They've been in those trainings the past 2 days, so I'll be pulling double duty today. So we wanted to provide you with an update on SEL. We started this year with our explicit SEL curriculum in our schools, and so wanted to share with you guys an update regarding where we're at with the implementation phase. So as we look at the SEL curriculum, the two main curriculums that are in our schools is the second step. We have 44 schools, and they're doing morning meetings and guidance lessons with our students. And then Project Wayfinder, we have 31 schools. This is at the middle and high school level. They are doing it during homeroom, during advisories, or some schools have selected a class period. And so Project Wayfinder is really new to the district. We've used Second Step before, but Project Wayfinder is a new addition that focuses really on secondary education. And we've heard really good things about Wayfinder and the topics that are being taught at the high school level specifically. Some of our schools, they did choose to continue with, for continuity, to continue with Project Leader in Me and Feeling Friends. So we did have them to continue with the programs that they had already started in their schools. Just want to highlight a few of our visits. Our SEL team has done a phenomenal job of providing coaching and support and modeling lessons in our schools. And so we wanted to just highlight a few things regarding what are some of the things that they're learning. One thing they're really focused in on is focusing in on active listening, learning mistakes, directions, and goal setting. So those are some of the things that they're working on with our elementary students and some of our middle and high school students also. In addition, they're looking at growth mindset, looking at the brain science of emotions, how do they handle their emotions, whether they're at the elementary level, middle, or high school level. And then we're also focusing in on brain breaks, helpful thoughts, teaching our students how to read facial expressions. How do you know that someone may be upset or someone may be bothered by something that you've said? How do you read different facial expressions? And really talking about focusing on different skills that they can build. As we look at Wayfinder has had the opportunity, they've been on site, they've come in and they've provided professional learning. They've also took our code of conduct and aligned it with their many lessons in Wayfinder. And then they've also, during their visit, they had the opportunity to attend some of our schools, North Forsyth High School, Mount Tabor, Philo Hill. They've done lessons within those schools and really being able to see what is actually, how's it been implemented, and those schools are doing a phenomenal job of implementing Wayfinder within their schools. Just an update on our restorative practices training. To date, we've trained 359 educators. We've worked with administrators, school staff, some of our central office staff. Each month, we offer a 2-day training on restorative practices. We've had some principals to ask for whole school, and we've done whole school trainings and did trainings throughout the summer.
Are students included with the whole school training?
Not with the whole school training for the restorative practices. That has been focused really on our staff, for staff training and not for our students.
Okay, I'm just wondering, for example, peer mediation is very much focused on students developing skills.
Absolutely. For middle school students, our middle school schools have had peer mediators. They came for training about a month ago, and so every school has peer mediators, at least 10 within their buildings to help with conflict resolutions, and they have received some of those restorative practices within those trainings. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And so our next steps that we're really focusing on right now is to continue to provide those model lessons and coaching our staff that need additional support. We're also looking at the usage to make sure that it's being utilized with fidelity. And if there's certain schools that need additional supports, those coaches are really pushing in and providing the support. And really wanting to make sure that the implementation process is really going off without a hitch. And so far, they've done a really good job with the implementation process. Was kind of a little nervous about the middle and high school because mostly elementary implements, but with the middle and high school, we have been able to implement and get some really good feedback from some of our schools regarding our students' responses to some of the lessons that they've received.
So, do we have any data to support that? Because that's not the feedback I'm getting. I talked to a bus driver the other day who said they had a meeting, and there's been over, they're in triple digits for instances, yet when asked, with all the bus drivers there, only 3 bus drivers said that a student has apologized to them for misbehavior on the bus. So as far as the restorative practices go, and I'm hearing a lot from teachers and parents, especially with like physical altercations between students, that there was no sit down with the 2 students to figure out what the disagreements are. So what data are we collecting to support?
So are you
That it's
talking about are we looking at the restorative practices? Because the restorative practices, that's the training with the staff. And so are we, if we're looking at the code, which that may be what we're talking about, the code of conduct, character, and support.
Well, if they're being trained on it, I would think they're being trained on it for when there are instances of violations against the code. So
Absolutely. You're talking about the teachers, correct? I want to make sure we're talking about
teachers and
the same
bus drivers
teachers.
are who I'm hearing
Okay.
from, that they, the feeling is that restorative part is not happening
Okay.
in all instances.
So we do have data to show that the restorative pieces are happening. When we're collecting our data from Educators Handbook, it lists all of the practices that they have done. So there have been a lot of conferences that have occurred, and then there's restorative conferences that they've had with the students. So we do have data where schools are entering in that if a disciplinary referral occurred, that they have used restorative conversations and they've used those practices. So we do have that data to share. We can share out that particular data, but it does capture what type of responses that they're doing. So they are doing some of the conversations. We've trained counselors on restorative conversations and things of that nature. So we do have where there are incidents where they're putting in that this is what they've done. They've closed the loop. They're meeting with parents. They're meeting with students, and that has been documented. They document all of the interventions that they do prior to suspensions. And so that's information that we do have.
So I guess the question I would have then is, how can the board access the data by school or, by school? And I guess, that would help us to know where there is more restorative practice. Is there any correlation with those schools that use it more and less discipline? So just learning from the practice so that the board can be, that much more intentional around how we support and finance, where the road meets the rubber. Because I think for some of us, it sounds ideal, but does it really work? And I think all board members want to support something that really works instead of it sounds good.
I will respond, Board Member Woodbury. Yes, we can share data with all of you. We have a lot of different data that we're tracking around discipline, around what's being put into Educator Handbook, so we can share data. It's more helpful when we share it, probably sitting down and reviewing it together, even if we did it in a few different workshops or together, just because when you receive it like that, you're going to have 5 million questions about even how to interpret, how to read it, and so I think we could schedule something like that with all of you. We can maybe tag it on next week. We have another workshop. Maybe we can tag on a few minutes to do that. As far as implementation, as you can imagine, when we're rolling out an entire initiative across an entire district, with 7,000 employees, people are at different phases of implementation, so this just takes a lot of reinforcement, a lot of layers of training, a lot of layers of coaching, when our area soups are on site visits. So we are, again, I think, what are we, 5 months into implementation, 4 months into implementation?
Yeah, we started in September. For our SEL curriculum, and then we just started in August with our
2 months.
Orientation and implementation of the code.
So you're going to see varied levels, but you're going to see that we just have to stay the course and keep reinforcing. This time next year, it'll feel very different with that implementation. Just because, again, it takes a lot of training, a lot of reinforcement, a lot of supports. It's not just going to change overnight, so.
So I would assume that if we looked now at maybe discipline data, not much has changed as we're starting the process. And so if we're looking at the new code and we just started this in September, and then maybe was some of the training even done in August,
Yeah,
early?
it's continuing. Yeah, we're continuing. They just
Everyone.
received like all the restorative conversations, the behavior solving conversations. So they've just received training on those. And so as we see it, then we see it within Educator's Handbook, and we see where they are implementing. So they are receiving training, and we're starting to see those things. I think last year you wouldn't have seen any restorative conversations or anything like that within our documentation, but this year we are seeing those things occurring.
So the one, I guess, nugget I would put on the table is we do have schools that have been using restorative practices as pilots for some time, like Carver, I think Parkland, maybe it was another one, but nevertheless, what are we seeing with their discipline data since they kind of selected to be in the process or to select to use restorative practice as a form of behavior modification in their schools?
And I think we've seen changes in staff over the period of time, and so we are retraining. I know that during the summer, we did a lot of work with Carver also, and so I think with staff changes, we are retraining staff as they come on board. So I think that we may not see a drastic difference in the data, but we will, I can say that we are training more staff, and I know that we train more staff at Carver. We even did work around trauma with them over the summer also. And so, and Reynolds has been a big part of the trauma work that we've been doing also. So I think I was going to get to questions, but.
Any other questions?
Ask.
Anyone else have any
additional
other?
questions?
So I guess I just need clarity. Has everybody been trained and everybody should be doing what we've said they're going to be doing in the new code? Because I'm not expecting results to happen overnight. I know this takes time. What I do expect to happen overnight is for it to be implemented with fidelity.
Yeah.
And when I hear that, two middle school students are in a fight and yet nobody sat down with them to talk about a different way that they could have resolved their conflict. Or when I hear about, a bus driver getting hit in the back of the head with an object and a student never had to take responsibility and apologize for that. That's where I'm concerned, because we aren't going to see any differences in these results if we're not actually doing what we said we were going to do.
Yeah.
And that's my concern.
Yeah, and later you'll see the presentation of who's been trained. We have orientation. All staff have gone through orientations, from our bus drivers, cafeteria workers, and our teachers, our students. We've done lesson plans with our students. And so all of those stakeholders have been trained on the code. And in addition, they are receiving training every month on different practices and on de-escalation, on meet and greet. And so this is not just a train at the very beginning of the year and it's over. We've been training every month, and we've been training various groups. So we have a code team that we train at the school, and they go back and they train their staff. Principals do boosters with their staffs on the code of conduct, and then we train student services staff on different practices throughout. They've received training in August, training in September, and so they're receiving bite size. We're not giving everybody everything all at once. They're getting in bite sizes, and so by the end of the year, we would have trained throughout all of the practices that we're planning on training on with the implementation process. But it's not, everybody was trained in August on the orientation and that's it. So they're receiving several different trainings throughout the entire year. And then we go back, we monitor, we look at how often are they doing the restorative conferences and things like that. So it's not just a one-time thing. Engaging Schools is with us for the remainder of the year, helping us with the trainings.
And I know that Board Member Bohannon, I think, was going to comment, but I also wanted to say if that is coming from school staff or someone that drives a bus, they need to bring up, part of the success of this is not just you're in a training and then you go, back in business as usual, and then things happen and you don't speak up and problem solve. So what my recommendation would be, if anyone says that, my next question would be, did you bring it up in your leadership team meeting? Did you bring it up in your grade level? Are you all working together to problem solve these situations? If it's whoever you're thinking should have held that restorative conference or conversation, if you're thinking it's your admin, or I'm not sure who said these things, but are you approaching that? Are you bringing it up? Because again, we're all in this, we're all part of this solution here, and the staff need to speak up and be part of the solution. And so does a bus driver, if they're having concerns. They need to speak up to their supervisors. We need to gather them together. We need to continue to problem solve. How do we address behaviors like that? It's not a training and then we're done. Even monthly, that's not enough. It's ongoing conversations and problem solving on how to de-escalate situations. And it honestly, training around behavior takes a lot of time and a lot of practice and a lot of reinforcement and a lot of shifting in your own mind about how to work with students when their behavior's escalated. It is an art and a science, and it's going to take a lot of time to get everyone in a different place, and our kids all, moving toward those high expectations we know they can meet. So.
Well, I was just going to say, Dr. Stokes, that I think that the update that you'll provide later during the full board meeting around the Code of Character, Conduct, and Support will be beneficial, in part because I think it will aid us in being able to help manage expectations when we have these conversations. I know that a lot, I think it'll help us kind of understand what it is that people were supposed to have had already versus what is coming. Because I think that for us, when we get that type of feedback, we know what the intent is, and so when we kind of get that feedback that maybe what we intend to be happening and what is necessarily happening isn't really matching, it could be a little bit alarming for us. And so I think that update later will provide us some context, and that'll be helpful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have 2 action items. First, to consider approval of the contract with university instructors.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay. It's unanimous. And the second one, consider approval of course requirements.
Move to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, thank you. Any discussion? All right. All in favor? All right. Thank you very much. Announcements. On Tuesday, November 1st, we will have the next meeting of the Curriculum Committee. And so, thank you. I'll turn it over to Finance.
So this is the call to order for the Finance Committee. The board members are myself, Ms. Crowley, Ms. Calvert-Haynes, Ms. Cottle-Jones, and Mr. Bohannon. And the discussion item first is the senior certified staff salary adjustment, and Mr. Kranz is here to talk about that.
Good evening. When we looked at the salary adjustments, the staff that's in the instructional category at step 16 are frozen. So the state sets it at 15, and then it stays the same. So when I hit step 15, I get a step increase plus an adjustment. If I'm on step 16 through 24, I only get an adjustment and that's it. There's no step. When I hit step 25, from 24 to 25, there's a step. But when I go to 26 and higher, I'm back to being frozen. Those personnel only received about a 2.5% raise. And if you look at historical, the district's always said an average of. But we have heard some pushback from that staff that's in those categories. That's about 1,700 teachers or eligible employees, which is about 45% of our staff. The estimated cost of that to bring them up to 4% is about $1.8 million. And give you another bit of information. So the Article 46 is allowed for instructional purposes. and this meets that definition. Article 46 in FY '22 came in at $19 million. Our total supplements on the instructional side is almost $30 million. It's $29.6 million we pay a year. So I think and believe that what we're requesting is reasonable. I think that it will assist in the retention of our more senior and experienced staff. And I think it also will serve, as I mentioned in the write-up, as a tool as we compete with school districts for staff in the surrounding counties, that it also will be an attraction there. So with that, I'd recommend approval to proceed.
Any
Any
questions?
questions?
So Article 46, help us with, so that we all know when we're talking about Article 46, that is what?
Article 46 was adopted in 2020. The intent behind it was the county got rid of a 1% sales tax, property tax, and took a quarter penny of the sales tax and said, we're going to give this to schools for instructional purposes. And that was the specific use of it. So that could be a supplement, that could be pay, because pay and supplements, the annual salary and supplements are exactly the same thing. They both count for retirement. So they really are considered compensation from all standards and sets. And that's what the Article 46 says.
Well, the one thing, we haven't, and maybe we'll get into this maybe a little bit deeper on the 1st of November, because I know we have a finance
Yes, ma'am.
workshop and things like that, but so we're taking, I guess I'm a little concerned that what we're doing is we're rectifying something that the state, we're giving money in, or when it says salary adjustment, based on the state salary schedule, that's where the differences happen. It's not the local supplement.
True.
And so if we're doing that now, are we opening up every time that difference happens from the state? Like if the next schedule comes out,
Right.
and we see that there are discrepancies, and we have kind of set this precedent, I have yes, I want them to have the money for sure, but we're taking it out of a quarter-cent sales tax, and the main purpose of the quarter-cent sales tax was really for the way it was sold to the community and to the voters, was that was going to be used for the local teacher supplement. We even took classified out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess without seeing numbers, so a couple of things, we have been fortunate since it passed that we have been given more than the county has projected, so it's brought in more. But I know that historically, over 8-10 years, there have been some ups and downs.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't saved a penny of what they've given us. We've spent it all out.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we go into a down year or two, can we make sure that we can pay for all this? Because we're going to be doing, for these teachers, for these folks, we're not just doing it this year. We're doing it next year and the next year.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, I guess what I'm saying is, as a board member, I want to do this, but I've seen no numbers really about it, and so that concerns me, right? We had this conversation when we were talking about the budget, that if an increase was given to us over what we had budgeted, that we would pause and we would talk about, should that be set aside? And we really haven't had that conversation. And so again, I want to share this up. I hate that people were not given as much, and that they hit these stops. But again, we're using local dollars to try to correct state mistakes. And there's no guarantee that won't happen over and over. And so if we keep doing that, can we sustain it? Because the worst thing would be even though we call it a local supplement, it's not a bonus. It's not what we've been doing with ESSER. And people count on that money in their budget, in their household budget. And I just don't want us to, leap into this without really looking at it. That's
Now,
just my concern.
So think about it like this, and I fully understand where you're coming from. But we're $10 million short every year when we pay the salaries today. And the Article 46 could not be rolled into restricted or unrestricted fund balance. It never was designed for that. So, you know, when you look at it, and I fully understand where you're coming, but we're already covering the state with the supplements that we pay today. I don't think this puts us any worse financially. I mean, I'm very conservative by nature, so understand that, and I fully understand it. But I don't think it puts us in any worse financial shape, okay? Because it's so specific on how it can be spent that if we saw a downturn, it still would have to be spent on the supplements that are already out there. And we're running, I don't see our supplements going down less anytime soon.
And so we feel like what we're doing, it's a downturn, and we take a couple of years of just the numbers not coming in at what they are now, and we've done this. And then, of course, what the other part is we compete against Guilford and others around us, and so the point of the quarter cent was to make sure that local supplements stood out, and that was a goal. And so, you know, Guilford starts to raise theirs, others start to raise theirs, because they don't have a funding formula with the county.
Right.
And so, again, I guess I kind of feel like I'm voting on something, and I really haven't we really haven't had much of an update just in that, and we haven't really looked at what that looks like. So again, I'm just a little concerned. I'm not saying it's not the right thing to do, but the state makes a lot of mistakes, and and this is something that we haven't. I mean, we pay local people out for, you know, APs and a lot of other things that local dollars go for salaries, but I don't know that we've ever sheared up the gap
So
before, from
Okay, well,
2%
now-
to
I
4%.
think Ms. Parker has a question she wants to ask.
So you can go ahead and answer that if you want to, Mr.
Yes.
Krantz. Yeah.
Well, what I was going to say is on the principals and assistant principals, we pay out another about $5 million. The total we pay out on supplements every year is around $35 million.
So, no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's the first time that I'm realizing that we're going in though and saying, okay, some have gotten 4% in these particular areas, they haven't hit that 4, and so now we're sharing up the difference. And and maybe we have done that, and I just don't remember it, but what I'm thinking is that sets a precedent, because I think that happens quite a bit.
So
Yeah.
oh, you go, Ms. Parker.
Well, yeah. I was just going to say, and I guess that segues into this, because I know whenever for years, every step was frozen for a while. And so then we did some backtracking at that point to fill in the gaps where those areas where those people were way, way, way behind. And so question number one, have we done all of that? In my memory.
On the instructional side, or are we talking about the whole staff?
I'm talking about the instructional side, the
I
teachers.
mean, I think on the
classroom teachers.
instructional side, we've got it pretty well set. We don't have the compression problem that we do in the classified staff side.
Okay. Now, my second part of that question is, okay, so let's say I'm a classroom teacher and I hit step 16.
Yes, ma'am.
And in 3 years, I hit step 16. So everybody in those steps is going to get that raise every year past this, or just this year, or?
They would get it this year. The plan would be, depending on on the budget, which, you know, let's be honest, the FY '25 budget's going to be a challenge.
Yeah.
Because ESSER 3 goes away.
Right.
But that's a challenge whether, you know, Article 46, it cannot be used specifically for that purpose.
Right.
So you're not, by not doing Article 46 as I'm recommending, I don't think puts us in any better financial shape, other than if you were to tank and you lost 1/3 of the revenues using 30 million. Now, if that's the case, we got a much bigger problem.
Yeah.
It's a lot bigger than, and that's what I'm trying to say is that I understand what Ms. Jones is saying. Again, I'm very conservative, so I fully understand where she's coming from. But I don't think it solves, you know what I'm saying? It's not the panacea to solve our fund balance issue.
Well, and I guess my concern, if it's just if I'm just step 16 this year, and I get that, but Ms. Motzinger hit step 16 3 years out, and Ms. Motzinger doesn't get it, but I've gotten this I've gotten this in my salary every single year that other people are not gonna
It would be built
get.
into the salary schedule.
Right, but
So
I'm getting
it's
my
not tied to a person.
14%. I'm getting my 4%.
It's going to be tied to, if I'm step 16, just like you see on your salary schedule, now you've increased what the supplement amount is.
Okay,
Okay.
so, okay,
So, as people come in, you assume that people are going to roll out.
right.
And we're right now at 1,743 employees that are in these categories.
Okay.
My understanding, Ms. Parker, is we used to have a supplement schedule that really tried to benefit experienced teachers to keep them. And when I hear that 45% of our teachers are in this category, these are the people we do not want to lose.
Correct.
Those are the most valuable people we have in our district, are the people who've been teaching for 16 years and more. And this is supplement dollars we're talking about. It's just trying to use some of the supplement to really reward and recognize that these people are super valuable, and we don't want them getting the smallest raises of our teaching staff, which is what they're set up to get right now.
Yes, ma'am.
The state does a lot of things that we as a district have picked up, right? There's been a lot of top textbooks and supplements. And there is so much that the state should be doing. And I hope that as a board, I hope as the new board, I hope as ex-board members, we all continue to talk to our legislators about how we want them to fully fund public education, as they should. But in the meantime, we have 45% of our teachers in a category who are not going to get the percent raises that other teachers will.
So basically, what you want to do with this is make a supplement schedule similar to what we used to have with different varying degrees.
Yes, an additional supplement on steps 16 to 24, and then 26 and higher.
So we're changing and I guess that's where I'm a little, I just feel like I'm looking at a blank page. There's, other than just the takeoff sheet that says this is how much it's going to be, I don't think any of the details were laid out. And so that was, I'm not, so are we just are we looking at and doing this, like, what does our last teacher supplement schedule look like now? And then I know these particular steps, so we're saying in these years, we're going to add this percentage in there every year. And then I think when that was asked, you said no.
Correct, because what you'd be doing is, if you approve this, you would change the supplement amount on step 16 to 24, and then 26 and higher.
Right.
So that as I move from step 15 to 16, I'm now seeing a step increase plus a bump, okay? When I go to 17, I don't get the step from the state, but my supplement out there is a little bit higher than everybody else, so it covers me that I'm getting the same basic percentage increase. That's what you're attempting to do with this change.
And if we had someone come, say, from a neighboring county, and they're at 16, they would get that as well?
They would get at step 16, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Is there, like, I know this is in committee, but before we completely take full action on it, is there a way that we can actually see what we're talking about? I mean, it's just, it's,
Absolutely,
I just want to
absolutely.
understand it, because right now, we're talking about numbers, but we really don't have anything in front of us that we can look at.
I mean, the only thing we could give you would be a salary schedule, unless you
Yes.
wanted to see 1,743 employees.
Well,
I could give you that.
Well, I don't want that, but, a salary schedule or something that was written down to say, okay, this is kind of how it moves forward.
If
It's
you're
just trying to
year
That's fine.
17,
I
this
mean,
is what your
fine.
supplement would be.
Yeah.
Right.
If you're year 26,
Okay.
this is what your
Right.
That's
supplement
fine, we
would
can
be.
do that.
Just
That'll
because I
take me less than
think
10
sometimes we get questions, and so for us to be able to understand and
Absolutely.
explain
Yeah.
to teachers or people who ask us, we just, yeah.
Yeah,
I think that would be
no
fair
problem
if
at
we
all.
could see what happens to teachers, say, at year 14 and 15, and then
Right.
with what the
Right.
state is doing,
And the-
and then what happens
Yeah.
for our teachers
Yeah.
with
And
what
then-
the state is doing with their 2.5, but no step increase.
Right, give
So we
them-
can
yeah.
compare them
Yeah,
and have,
give us both.
that's what you're looking.
and
And that's
that's-
fair to get that for
Well, I
next,
think it's-
before the board votes on it.
Well, and
as a full
problem.
I
board.
think it's fair to get it as well, as Ms. Motzinger said. Also, part of that is for us to be equipped with the numbers and to understand in depth, because when we want to have conversations with our legislatures in Raleigh, it's nice to look and see what we're having to do locally to cover for some of those things, and so being able to full circle.
Exactly. Yes, and I think we can definitely have those for the next full board meeting when this comes
Correct.
up for a full
You can
board.
see it on a step-by-step basis, not a problem.
And Ms. Crowley?
So it looks like it's about a $1.8 million gap.
Yes, ma'am.
So would it be fair to say whatever the quarter cent sales tax brings in, you peel off that 1.8 million and then the rest gets kind of divided? But that 1.8 is in a way like the handicap? You got to take that off because that's what's missing. So,
But I mean, I believe that, and you could, but I think if all of a sudden Article 46 went from $19 million, which is the amount we received today, and it dropped to 15, are we going to cut everything by $4 million?
that was the,
I think that's it. We don't have a safety net. And so that's what I'm saying with Article 46. We have spent out every dime that we have received in. We've not looked at a continuum average over 10 years, 12 years, because it's going to go up and down, so that because what I don't want to do would to be to give this out in what people count on as their salary, and then somehow have to figure out how to make up that difference. And so, and my thought too is, though our county commissioners at that time, if something drastic were to happen, then that means they're probably hurting as well as a county and may not be able to have that money. I think this is on for action tonight at the
Just
full
have it-
board, at the full board meeting.
No.
I don't think so.
It's not?
No, ma'am.
Okay,
No.
okay. So we can do it,
No,
we can get
just
the
committee.
information before the
You'll get it
next.
before there's a full board vote. Can I ask Mr. Kranz, has every penny been spent out that we've received from the county?
Yes, ma'am. So if we see a decrease, it's going to be a decrease across the board.
Okay.
And so this particular, there's right now, and that's where, honestly, if you look at the salary schedules, and we pay 2 supplements right now to all of our instructional staff. So, as Ms. Jones is right, but as we go down, it's much bigger than Article 46.
Well, but I think, and I see what you're saying in the whole overall picture, but just as a board, when Article 46 came into play, we had the conversation of saying,
Right.
just around that piece, should we carve out, what's an average, what's something that we should carve out that would help, right, in some of those years? And we really and truly have spent out every dime.
Yes.
Thinking that it's just always going to stay the same. And we know historically, when we were even putting this together, that there are ups and downs that happen. And so I just want us to have that conversation, look at that.
Question, sorry. Mr. Kranz, I thought that you mentioned earlier that the Article $46 could not be, we had to spend it, we couldn't take a portion of it and save it, or place it in fund balance.
No,
So-
sir, because the money's intended for instructional purposes, and it's not intended to be sitting in a fund balance. But
But
now
so
you
the
could-
article's written to where we cannot identify it to just say we're holding back. So the
Instructional
way
purposes.
the way it's written is every year we have to
It
spend out
doesn't
every
say
dime.
that, it says
Right.
instructional purposes.
Right.
And from a pure accounting perspective, fund balance is not instructional.
No, but we could put it in a restricted fund,
I
correct?
don't believe so. I don't
So
believe
if
you
we-
could.
if
What
we
you could
can't-
do- What you could do is you can backdoor it, where you use it for some supplement or instructional purpose, thereby freeing up other revenue dollars that you could put into a fund balance.
So there's a way, and I guess what I'm getting at is the fact, is that, and for the sake of just kind of trying to get to the thing, is there technically a way, if it was the pleasure of this board to set aside some of the funds for the purposes of just being cautious and conservative?
Yes, sir, I mean, I could, it'd be a different mechanism, but at the end of the day, I can get to a fund balance, to money in the fund balance.
Okay, that's just,
That meets every definitions that are there.
right, okay. Could I call the question, please? Could we
Oh,
proceed?
did you have a question, Ms. Parker?
Did you understand what I'm
Okay.
saying, Ms.?
Was there any
We could
other?
backdoor into it. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, we have
That would
a
be-
second. Is there any other questions on this topic? Then can we do the fiscal year '24 budget process update?
So I'll go quickly on this. So the objective of the '24 budget is to change the way we've done it in the past. What we've done in the past with the budget is taken the budget from the prior year, look at what the priorities will be, and then just kind of add to it without reconciling budget to actual and determining why things work out the way they do, okay? So we look at it in total, but we're not breaking it down. One of the things that, in trying to break down where our costs are, is our accounting system is set up to track on a PRC report to the state. It is not how we operate, because you'll have a PRC in 2 or 3 different departments in that PRC, so you're not able to break it down into applicable departments so that the people who are operating those departments know what their budgets are and know what they've got available to operate with. So you're operating somewhat in the dark. And that is not unusual for school districts, so don't take it like that, but that is not a good way to operate. As a district, and this is a number to keep in your mind, we went through last year, we handled $1.1 billion of cash. We will do the same this year. So we're a large organization. We want to create with the budget process, you want all stakeholders, I'm sure you as a board do, you want everybody involved to have a voice in the budget process. And by doing site-based, zero-based budgeting, that's what occurs. You want transparency, and you want the budget to tie to the strategic plan. The process in doing that is you break the budget down into 2 components, the personnel component and your non-personnel component. Each school department will do their own request on the personnel side and then do the non-personnel. Once they have, and as they're being told, if you don't ask for something, you can't even be considered. We're not giving out what the revenues are. You need to put down everything you need to do your job, everything, no matter what it might be. With that, you'll see a budget drafted for the superintendent, drafted with the school board, have the ongoing, and it's important that there's ongoing conversations from the board, from the superintendent, from the stakeholders about what are the budget priorities they would like to see. With us then as finance coming back to you as a board and giving you updates on what the costs may be and kind of whittling down what will be on the final budget at the end of the day. It's not Tommy's budget. It's not finance's budget. It's the superintendent and the school board's budget. And that's what we want to get to, but with everybody's input to the process. We'll start in November, rolling out, this case, the personnel position budgets, okay? Working on developing the revenues with the goal now, instead of getting to January 1st and inputting, say, 75% of like this past year was 75% of what was in FY21. Putting in a full budget, a projection is a guess. No matter how good we may be with it, it's still a guess. But put in a full budget and let departments operate based off of the best data we've got available. And that we recommend to y'all and that y'all are all comfortable with and how we operate. You begin discussions between the school board and the superintendent on the budget priorities, and that'll be ongoing. You'll change as we go through and we analyze cost. You know, if you come to me and say, Tommy, we want to do a 5% raise, and I say, well, a 5% raise is going to be 50 million, I'm just picking a wild number. You may say, Tommy, there's no way we can do that, I just don't see revenues increasing at that threshold. Maybe it'll be $5 million, what can we do? You see what I'm saying? And that's the dialogue that'll take place. And we'll be doing calculations pretty quickly to get you that, so you can finalize where you want the priorities to be. At the same time, you saw budget codes. We'll be updating the budget code so that we can break it down between PRCs and what the state wants, but also what our operations want from the financial statements themselves, okay? We'll continue with that into '24. We'll continue with that into January of '23. In January, we'll start having the first draft of documents where we'll start seeing what the personnel costs are, we'll see what the non-personnel requests are, and we'll start getting an idea of what the total position is. Then we'll start aligning that so that y'all can start seeing, the superintendent can see and the board can see the first draft of what the budget's looking like. So you've seen all this data, you've heard all this, now you're going to see it in number form, just like Ms. Jones said, where you've got data now to look at. You would have that data and start saying, you know what I'm saying, tweaking it to the way it meets. We would finalize in March. Remember, we give to the county a budget request on May 1st, so you got to work kind of backwards at this point. We want to get that in a draft, good finalized form in March of '23. That would give you March and April to have discussions, to hold public hearings, and to finalize where you're comfortable as a board what that request is going to be. In April, as I said, you kind of went through that. May, you give to the county. We address any questions that the county may have. We continue to finalize projected revenues, assuming, waiting on the federal, the state, and the local. June comes, we get the information from the county. We get a solid budget that you're comfortable with, and we would ask to approve it. And then at that point, we get it into the system, and we would meet with every school and department to review their budget, and they would have the budget in their hands. And that's a quick and dirty of the whole process.
Any questions?
I do. So this process is similar to what we used to do, where we would set in on departmental presentations from each department.
And what I understand, talking to people in the district, it's very similar to
Okay.
what you did, I think, 3 to 5 years ago.
And in addition to individual departments coming, I think I heard you say individual schools.
Yes, ma'am.
Will they have to come and present, or will they just give those to you?
They'll meet with
or-
us, and we'll do the
Okay.
presentations, or that would be the intent. But it gives them a voice that, as they see the budget, it would not surprise me if some of them come to the public hearings and voice what they would like to see done. And you want as many people as possible to be involved in this process, because again, it's not my budget.
Right.
It's not, finance. It's the districts. It's all of ours budgets. And so the more voices we can have at the table, the better that document's going to be.
Okay, all right, good. I mean, that sounds very good. Everybody can understand the budget better that way. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, I think so.
Yes, thank you.
I think it gives real clarity that the budget, this is the budget for the year. There won't be all little exceptions along the
Right.
way of now we want or this.
Right.
It's the budget, and if you want it, it needs to be in that budget.
Yes, ma'am.
So thank you so much for that, Mr. Krantz. We have one action item. Consider approval of Article 46 allocation, staff fiscal year 2023 salary adjustment, with the understanding that the requested information will be available to the board before the full board vote. So this is just to get out of committee. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? I'll second. All those in favor of Okay. And all those, any opposed? No? Right, so that was unanimous. Thank you. The next meeting of the Finance Committee, well, we're having a workshop on November 1st, and then Tuesday, November 15th will be the next meeting of the Finance Committee. And now I turn it over to the chair.
Thank you. I would like to call the meeting to order. May I have a motion to go into closed session to discuss a personnel matter?
So moved.
Second? All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on your school channel, Cable 2.